Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and it's time to look ahead to the waiver wire for Week 12 after Week 11 slapped us in the face and told us to sit down. That's what it did. It was a strange week where players that nobody had rostered were incredibly productive, and superstars that you drafted early did absolutely nothing. I looked at scoreboards everywhere, boys, and I saw a lot of teams that had 150 points and a lot of teams that had 50 points when the dust all settled. It was a have and have not, but lucky for all of you, we've got these two, and we've got Derek Brown, DBro, the King of Bros, and Pat Fitzmaurice to help you find the right players this week to help you shake off Week 11 if you need to, or build on an incredible point total because you had Josh Allen and Travion Henderson in the same lineup, or Jacoby Brissett, who continues to complete every pass known to man. And I'm so happy, DBro, in our flex league, I started him over Geno Smith this week in the super flex spot because I was like, I was starting to get itchy at the last second, and right at like 12 o'clock, I made that change, and I was glad that I did. I don't know what Geno's going to do tonight, but I'm just glad that I made that decision.
I'm glad you had a good week, Joey. I think speaking of the have-nots, my combined lineup and flex might get me 60 points. It's tough scene, man. Tough scene. Lots of really good players that did nothing.
Fitzy, I know we got a lot of guys to talk about, but your Packers came out with the W there, snuck one out from the Giants. And is there a reason why Dan Campbell hates his punter? I want to talk about another team in that division of yours. I mean, how many times can we go for it on fourth down here? I'm just curious.
I guess 5 is the answer.
Every time.
Kick a field goal, punt. Like does he hits kickers more than Jake Seeley?
What about Nick Sirianni hating punters and not wanting to kick it away from your 30-yard line late in the game when Detroit hasn't been able to do anything in offense, and you give them a short field to make it a one-score game late? That was just crazy. But Eagles games have not been fun to watch lately.
No.
I thought they were.
That's Mike Mayer.
Maybe like 3 to 5 weeks ago, they were having a little turnaround with the passing game. I'm like, okay, they finally figured it out under Kevin Patillo. Things are going to be better from this point on. But now it's just like the offense is back in disrepair. But the defense is playing so well that, every game with the Eagles is just this smother fest where it's not very fun to watch. And yet the Eagles are one of the best teams in the NFC.
Yeah, and they're going to eventually have to figure things out here as we move along. All right, before we get to the first name of many names to discuss here this week, I want to talk about the winner of the Fantasy Football Championship belt, and that is John Pelini Jr. Congratulations, John. Get in touch with us at customer support at mailbag@fantasypros.com with your mailing address and screenshot of your YouTube account while you're logged in. Once we confirm that you, John Pelini Jr., are the John Pelini Jr., not senior, not the third, junior, that's the one I'm looking for, we'll send that stuff right out to you. So congratulations on winning the belt. And that means when one giveaway goes away, another takes its place. We've got the Wall Smack back. So if you want a chance to win the most unique piece of NFL fan gear out there, the NFLPA Wall Smack, courtesy of our good friends at Trophy Smack, the #1 destination for epic fantasy football hardware. This is your shot. How do you win? Subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop your comments below, and of course, ring the bell till it goes ding so you never miss a piece of content on the channel, and you can win the Wall Smack, the perfect edition for your fan cave, office, living room. It's not just decor. It's a way to represent your favorite player in style. All right, boys, let's start with a running back here today. Now, we're going to talk about 4 guys at the top of the show. Normally, we do like the waiver wire ad of the week, and then we kind of, discuss the other positions here. But I want to start with Emmanuel Wilson here at the top and another couple guys that I think are going to be on a lot of people's radars and maybe challenging for that #1 spot. And Wilson is rostered in just 12% of leagues on Sleeper. Ironically, I had to drop him in a league where I was stashing him because I was in a roster crunch and I had no choice. Thanks, Sam Laporta. Thanks a lot. Way to go. But very frustrating because now it seems like with the Josh Jacobs injury, there could be some potential missed time. Wilson stepped in there, 11 carries for 40. He also had a 2-point conversion reception here. So, DBro, let's talk about this injury of Jacobs, what it could mean for the both short and long-term usage of Emmanuel Wilson in these Packers offense.
We're still waiting on final confirmation as a tape in this. And maybe it's a PCL injury. Maybe it's not. We're going to find this out. So, Jacobs, it is all in the wind, man. He could miss 1 week. He can miss multiple weeks. But while he's out, Emmanuel Wilson will be the guy. Like after Jacobs was out last week, 94% of the snaps, all of the rushing opportunities, 73% of the routes for Emmanuel Wilson. So, guys, I don't think he's a fantastic talent, but he's a plug-and-play volume RB2 immediately off the rip for as long as Jacobs is out.
All right. As a legit cheesehead, you've seen enough Emmanuel Wilson here, Pat. So what's your take on the player and the circumstance going forward? Because if it is a PCL injury, as we were talking about before, that's stuff that you've seen the Pearsalls and the Bowers deal with. And next thing you know, 6 weeks later, they're still not around.
Yeah. So Wilson is most likely going to lead the way in the Packers backfield for as long as Jacobs is out. But I should mention that the Packers' other running back, Chris Brooks, could take some of the work too. Like I happen to think that Wilson and Brooks are both pretty good backups, and there's a chance that Matt LaFleur could go with the hot hand approach while Jacobs is out. But I do expect Wilson to be the primary guy, and what we've seen so far as the usage of the backup Packer running back suggests that. So Packers are a run-heavy team. They're running the ball at the 9th highest rate in the league. Their pass rate over expected is minus 3.4%. They have to run the ball because their pass blocking has not been very good. So I think Emmanuel Wilson is worth a pretty hearty fab bid if you need running back help, because I do think he's going to provide something close to running back 2 value for as long as Jacobs is out.
Patty, what do you think? 15, 20%? Somewhere on there?
Yeah, I
starting
think
range?
I think you could justify 25 or 30 at this late date when a lot of people have fab left. It's probably going to take a zesty bid to get him.
I love a good zesty bid. Speaking from one Wilson who was getting potentially a lot of work to one that got a lot of work last week, it's the easiest transition I'm going to make all year on a show. Michael Wilson, holy cow, for the Arizona Cardinals, 39% rostered, caught. And no, this is not me making this up. 15 of his 18 targets. Somewhere Jacoby Brissett is still completing a pass. It was unbelievable to watch. Obviously, it was a new completion record, 47 for Jacoby Brissett. We can't count on that every week. And we also can't count on necessarily Michael Wilson necessarily when Marvin Harrison Jr. returns, ? Fitzy. Like, I don't know what you want to do here, but this was an incredible performance. I don't think any of us really saw this coming. We thought Wilson could be a guy in a pinch that you could play if you really were in a bad spot between injuries and bye weeks on your roster. But I don't think anybody saw a 15 for 185 day coming.
No, not from a guy who had averaged 1.09 yards per route run for his career before Sunday, which is a pretty terrible number. I know. And yet he looked really good against the 49ers. Like he looked like a legitimate complementary threat to Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's hard for me to imagine Marvin Harrison Jr. could play this week after having an appendectomy less than 2 weeks earlier. You know, even if when we get to next weekend, it'll be less than 2 weeks since he had the surgery. So obviously the Cardinals had some inflated numbers because they were in catch-up mode all game against the 49ers. But still, the Cardinals were kind of short on pass catchers even before the Harrison injury. It was McBride, Harrison, and that was about it. Wilson is the distant third guy. So Cardinals get the Jaguars this week. I know the Jaguars shut down the Chargers yesterday, but Jacksonville's defense has been atrocious against the pass for most of the season. So I'm probably going to be ranking Michael Wilson as a top 25 receiver this week if Harrison is out. And week 13 against the Buccaneers looks pretty good too.
All right, DBro, what's your take on the Michael Wilson scenario too with this Arizona Cardinal team that, again, offensively, certainly offensively, you got to love what Jacoby Brissett's doing from a fantasy perspective. But in terms of role in the future, is this like the classic one-off of all one-offs?
It feels like it, man. This feels like late season Trey Tucker to me, where we get the one outlier game, and then it's like, this is probably like you don't want to be point chasing or fab chasing on the waiver wire, and I don't want to do that here. So like, I'll just leave Wilson out there for other people to bid for him, because like Patty talked about, when Marvin Harrison Jr. comes back, and I know that that's a big if. Like I would say he probably comes back at least in the next 2 weeks, but with appendectomies just in general too, like, we don't know any of the details about that. If it was ruptured, non-ruptured, if there were any other kind of complications, all the things surrounding that. So we kind of talk about it like it's a routine procedure, but it's also a core muscle surgery to where it might not be just cut and dry where he comes back in a week or two. So I get people that want to bid aggressively for Wilson, and I think that he could have extreme value over the next game, maybe two. But I don't want to blow the fab clip on Michael Wilson chasing this performance while I think he still can have a lot of value while Marvin Harrison Jr. is out.
All right. So basically you're saying, both of you, it's kind of a trap, right? Am I getting this correct?
Yeah.
Well,
and to an extent.
I mean, I think there's legitimate week 12 value there because I suspect, I would say it's worse than 50-50 that Marvin Harrison Jr. comes back. The matchup with the Jaguars is great. We're heading into a week where, Jalen Waddle and Ladd McConkey and Cortland Sutton and Deebo Samuel are going to be on bye. So there might be people who are needing a 1 week patch, and I think Wilson could be a pretty good 1 week patch.
Okay.
I think it's a trap in the sense of don't spend like $20 to $25 a fab on him, and it's a fab trap possibly.
He's not an emerging star, exactly.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I think we all know that.
Yeah.
And look, if you ended up streaming him last week, throw him in a package for a trade at the trade deadline this week. I mean, come on. I mean, if that's the boost that gets you over the hump, go and do it. All right, Christian Watson somehow still is under 40% rostered on Sleeper and on Yahoo. So I want to talk about this. Again, we know who he is, right? We know the identity of Christian Watson. He is a big play kind of guy. 4 of his 5 targets he caught for 46 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, he's a playmaker, big plays. So it's in that mold of those type of not all or nothing, like pretty much in that range. But he's a wide receiver 3 who could have wide receiver 1 kind of days, but he could also have wide receiver 5 kind of days, which is a little frustrating. So DBro, I'm shocked that it's still under 50% with him. That's the thing. He needs to be rostered. And I think going forward, it feels like he is certainly the best option that Jordan Love has in this offense.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, like we talked about this last week, and we've tried to be ahead of the curve on all these wide receivers, guys. Like we talked about Troy Franklin before he blew up. We talked about Alec Pierce before he blew up. That's where I'm at with Christian Watson. Like, is the floor low? Sure. But right now, as we're recording this, he is the wide receiver 5 for the week. If you read the primer, you probably flexed him, and kudos, man. And I think that better days are ahead, too, for Christian Watson in the sense of, I don't think this is a one-off for Christian Watson. Like, yes, we know his role, and yes, his ADOT is sky high, and yes, he's the field stretcher. He's also the single high guy. He led them in snaps, too. And the fact that he got a 20% target share this last week, I do think is telling in the sense of, it was him and Romeo Doubs, and that was it. Like, there wasn't any Luke Musgrave to worry about. Matthew Golden is dinged up. He's probably sharing routes with Jayden Reed when he comes back. These are the only 2 full-time wide receivers. And out of his final 7 games, guys, Christian Watson, this downfield role we're talking about, he gets 5 meetings. The Bears twice, the Vikings twice, and the Ravens. 5 games with defenses in the top 7 in deep ball completion rate allowed. So this role could be crazy fruitful down the stretch.
All right, Fitzy, your take on Watson here. DBro lays out the schedule. It's a pretty good argument for him. Are you shocked that he's still under 50%?
A little bit, yeah. Based on the draft pedigree, the size-speed combination. And there is a bit of a boom-bust profile here with Christian Watson. Like right now, his average depth of target is 22.6 yards, and yet he has a 70% catch rate so far. Pretty neat trick to have a catch rate that high when your average depth of target is over 20 yards. Now, of course, it's only on 17 targets since coming back, but still. So, yeah, you're just not going to get huge target volume for Christian Watson. But then again, Matthew Golden hasn't really popped. Tucker Kraft is on season-ending IR. We don't know when Jayden Reed is going to come back. So if he can just get an average of like 6 targets a game, he can make it work with the depth of target he's getting and his propensity for big plays.
All right, one more guy I want to talk about at the top here that, again, all these players are kind of contextual for the most part, is Kenneth Gainwell. Now, his playing time increased when Jalen Warren came out with an ankle injury. We're trying to figure out more about that as more information comes out. He was held to 26 yards on the ground, but as a receiver, he had 7 of 8 targets at 81 yards, and he scored 2 touchdowns in that victory for the Steelers. But we also have an Aaron Rodgers injury to deal with. So, Pat, this is a lot of context for Kenneth Gainwell, a player that we were very comfortable dropping last week, and now all of a sudden he's been thrown back into the fire.
Yeah, it sounds as if Jalen Warren's ankle injury might be minor, possibly just a low ankle, which typically doesn't lead to any missed time. Still worth monitoring, and I think Gainwell is still a worthwhile pickup just because of how good the Steelers' schedule is over the next 4 weeks. They get the Bears, Bills, Ravens, and Dolphins, all of whom have had issues stopping the run at times this season. And because of this Rodgers injury, maybe the Steelers' offense has to run more through the running backs than it normally would. And you figure Jalen Warren coming off some sort of ankle issue, probably not getting 20 carries in week 12. So even if it's a complimentary role, I think Gainwell could make it work against the Bears, certainly in week 12.
I don't want to be hyperbolic, DBro, but if you are a manager of Jalen Warren, do you have to have Kenneth Gainwell on your roster right now?
Yes.
Okay. It feels like it, right?
Yes. I think you have to have him rostered. And The other thing about Gainwell that I'll throw in here too, he does have a standalone role. Even before Jalen Warren went out, Jalen Warren, or at least Gainwell, played 4 of the 5 third down snaps, 11 of the 12 2-minute drill snaps. So he does have a pass game utility role. And in these really good matchups, I still think even if Jalen Warren is active, like Fitzy's talking about, he's probably not going to have 70% of the opportunities coming off of an injury. So you're looking at high-end handcuff value if Warren does miss time, as well as some standalone flex appeal.
All right. Speaking of some of these teams that are and are not contributing, this week we have 4 teams on a bye. The Denver Broncos after their big win, the Chargers after a big loss, the Miami Dolphins and the Washington Commanders who traveled to Spain. Well, they get some time off as well. But one thing that never takes time off is our sponsor, and that is Hard Rock Bet. And if you're listening to the podcast, you're aware already about the deep stats, the injury reports, the matchups, and you can put your fantasy football knowledge to the test on Hard Rock Bet. Sign up today for Hard Rock Bet, and you can get 150 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. If it hits, not only do you get your winnings, but you also get 150 in extra bonus bets. Sounds pretty good to you? Well, it is a good deal. And again, the Stats Hub over at Hard Rock Bet will help you bet on streaks and trends and stats that will help guide your picks. So if you haven't already, download the app. Again, it's available in Florida, Ohio, Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado. More states coming soon. Download Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook today. Make your first deposit and enjoy watching the games. All right, next up here are the RBs, and we've got a lot to talk about here, including a performance from Sean Tucker, rostered in 30% of leagues. He was a streaming guy coming into Sunday where we said, you know what, if you're up against it, Sean Tucker probably can have a role here. But 19 carries for 106 yards for 2 touchdowns was not exactly the role we were anticipating. So, Fitzy, I want to ask you this. Is he a product of this offense? Is Bucky Irving really as good as we think he is? Is Sean Tucker going to just dissipate into nothing if and when Bucky Irving returns? It's tough because 70% rostered. I feel like there's so many questions around Sean Tucker, but there was so much productivity that a lot of people are going to be very tempted to be aggressive on him now. And last week he did work a little bit against the Patriots, the first guy to rush for over 50 yards against the Patriots, by the way, all season long. That's what happened last week. So give me your thoughts on Sean Tucker here, not only for week 12, but how people should approach him in terms of that fab cost.
It seems like there's at least a decent chance Bucky Irving is back this week. And Joe, I am 130% sold on Bucky Irving being a fantastic running back. So like Sean Tucker is not like challenging Bucky Irving for primacy in this backfield. Bucky practiced on a limited basis all last week. So decent chance he comes back this week, if not almost certainly for week 13. And Rachaad White is still going to get passing down work because he's pretty good at that. But it looks like Tucker, not White, is probably the real handcuff for Bucky Irving. And look, Joe, it's almost Thanksgiving. It's stuffing and cuffing time. Even if you're a mac and cheese person, probably a good idea to go out and get Sean Tucker if you've got Bucky Irving on your team.
DBro, you're a Harry Potter nerd like me. It feels like we all need a time turner and go back in time and say, stream Sean Tucker. Could you imagine the team that, was just decimated and just streamed Sean Tucker and Michael Wilson? And, that's what I'm just going to throw this team out there. Imagine the point total that team kind of put up. But to that point, it's like you can't go back in time and take these points and put them into week 12. And I think that's something we have to remind ourselves when we're trying to assess Tucker. So how do you assess that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Patty on this one. I think you don't want to be caught in the moment of point chasing. I think that he is the direct handcuff of Bucky Irving. The thing about Bucky Irving is it's been so shrouded what his actual injury status is. When does he come back? All of a sudden, he just pops back into practice, which means maybe he's healthier than we've been led to believe. Who knows, man? This is all kind of up in the air. But I'm with Patty in that I do think Bucky Irving comes back this week. I think it's probably going to be a Bucky and Rachaad White led backfield. Tucker is probably Bucky's direct handcuff in this because, to Patty's point, White had 22 routes. Tucker only had 9. He had a 44% snap rate. Everything was awesome, but it was also, just the pristine matchup for rushing, too. That's what the Buccaneers, they just said in this game, we're just going to run. Josh Allen's not going to, okay, wait, he does beat us. And that was their, at least, ethos going into the week. And so I don't want to be point chasing. I understand the handcuff value, but I'm not going to look at Sean Tucker in my bids as expecting him to continue this or continue to be a 1B in that backfield. I think looking at him as a primary handcuff. So I'm probably not spending more than 4 to 5% of fab. to get him, which, I mean, probably might not get you. I mean, a guy's coming off, 140 freaking total yards and 3 scores. That's probably not going to get you Sean Tucker then.
No, I mean, probably not. And again, you can't go back and get those points. Don't come with him for this week. I guess that's the point we're all trying to make, especially if Bucky does come back. But if you have Bucky, you have to have Sean Tucker right now. Like that is another one of these Gainwell Warren things. Like you should have done it already. You should listen to Pat about the stuffing and cuffing and get ahead of the game at the end of October instead of necessarily waiting till Thanksgiving. It's never too early. Look, my outdoor Christmas lights are already up. You know why? Because it gets cold out. And I wanted to put them up before it got too cold. And I did it Saturday when it was 55 degrees. And yesterday it was 40 degrees. And I'm very glad that I did that. Very windy too. Horrible day. Anyway, Bhayshul Tuten exploded for 74 rushing yards and a touchdown. And then he came out with an ankle injury, 23% rostered. I know you're a big Tuten guy. So do you want to toot your horn about him, DBro? Or do you want to pass because of the ankle injury?
No, I'm not passing at all, man. And we talk about points that are not going to go with you into the next week. Well, Tuten's might, man. Maybe he's forcing more of a split backfield here. I mean, he didn't have much of a pass game role. He only, Etienne had 35 snaps, 12 routes. Tuten only ran 4 routes. So, again, looking at this role, it's a lot of early down dependent. But the rushing matchups upcoming for Tuten are really good. If the ankle is sound, he gets the Cardinals, the freaking Titans, the Colts. Okay, that's not great. But then the Jets, Broncos, Colts, and Titans to finish out the season. So, if anything happens to Etienne, Tuten would be an automatic RB1 with LaQuint Allen probably spelling him on some downs. But right now, you're looking at a guy that maybe we're seeing kind of like, as you like to say, Joe, the worm is turning in Jacksonville a little bit in that backfield.
Well, Fitzy, do you think the worm is turning or is that just the game plan?
I think he seized his opportunity. Got, I think, just over 40% of the Jaguars' offensive snaps in the first 3 quarters of that game before he tweaked his ankle. So maybe we do see something a little bit closer to. It was nice to see him make the most of the expanded usage. So I'm definitely interested in, like, I want to see where this goes. So he's a guy I'm very interested in for this week.
I'm shocked that a roster percentage is just 23%. Like,
same.
I think he's one of those guys that you saw every week just started to decline quietly because he wasn't getting used and other people had injuries and buys. And he was like, well, I'm not using this guy. And I'm sure if you look back a couple weeks ago, he was well over 50%, but now it's just 23 on Sleeper.
I mean,
Chris Rodriguez.
I was just going to say, could Bhayshul Tuten be the Bucky Irving late season riser in the Liam Cohen offense?
Could be.
Patty said what I'm thinking. Patty said
don't do that. I have a bunch of ATNs. Stop that, guys. I'm not happy about it. It's too early in the morning and it's a Monday for this kind of discussion. All right, Chris Rodriguez, 30% rostered, 79 carries. Oh, excuse me, 79 yards on 16 carries for Chris Rodriguez. Now he's going to be on a bye, which brings me to the other question I have. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt along with him. Question: would you be adding Fitzy, Chris Rodriguez this week quietly on his bye? And if you have to drop somebody and you have JCM, would you be dropping him because he's on his bye if you need other things to help you?
I would rather have Chris Rodriguez than Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt at this point.
Okay.
Like, Rodriguez is the lead guy, but he still played less than half of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Yesterday, Joe, like Krosky-Merritt, Jeremy McNichols are still involved, and the Commanders' offense just isn't exactly high-powered without Jaden Daniels. So Rodriguez certainly playable in deeper leagues. I just don't think he's the answer to anyone's problem at running back.
All right. What's your take on that Commanders backfield in terms of rostership? Who do you want? Do you want none because they're both on a bye, or do you want to sneak Rodriguez through this week, DBro?
Sneak Rodriguez through, and unfortunately, if you got Bill, you're dropping him. I mean, this was just the perfect matchup for an early down back going against the Miami Dolphins. But Rodriguez, to the point, is probably like an RB3, and if he scores during a week, he's probably an RB2. So that's at least how I'm viewing him moving forward. But good rushing matchups. I mean, like the remaining schedule, like you look at the plus matchups that are remaining: Minnesota Vikings, the Giants, and they get the Cowboys. So some good matchups to where you can plug him in as a flex play. And dude, if he ends up with this kind of stat line in any kind of week, but he scores a touchdown, he's probably flirting with RB2 value.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to one more guy, Bam Knight. Jake and I were joking around that he's been added and dropped more times than any other player this season. And I think we're back there again. So Bam Knight, 27% rostered. DBro, is he an ad? And if so, how much you want to spend on him?
He's an ad, more to the point about like with Amari DiMercado dealing with a foot injury or a lower leg injury. We're still waiting on details about that. I think he's definitely worth an ad because is he still going to split time with Michael Carter? Sure. Did Bam Knight come into this game dinged up? Yes. Is the schedule not great? Yeah, again, I mean, they get the Jaguars, the Buccaneers, the Rams, the Texans, woof. It's not until you get to the late season stuff where maybe he's like a playoff week hammer for you where he gets the Falcons and the Bengals. So a lot of bad to get to the good. So Bam Knight, a player that I do have interest in, but not over some of these other guys we've already discussed.
Fitz, I love when DBro interviews himself. It's one of my favorite things. It's my favorite. Isn't it great? It makes my job so much easier.
It is. It's the, I'm wearing the Tag Strong t-shirt, and that was
the Mike did it all the time.
A staple of Tags, yes, asking himself questions. Like, that was the classic Tags bit.
Not bad company, fellas. Not bad company.
It's a great company, and I used to mock him all the time because that's what friends do. They mock each other for those things. And as I'm listening to DBro do that self-evaluation question and answer period, all I kept thinking about was, oh man, Tags must be with us today on the show. Between the shirt and then you doing what you're doing. Maybe it was subconscious. DBro saw the shirt today. He was like, I'm going to ask myself 5 questions and answer them. That's what I'm going to do. All right, Fitzy, thoughts on Bam Knight real quick before we move on to any wide receivers?
Yeah, a couple of wild cards here. Not clear when Trey Benson gets back. Not clear. We don't know about DeMercado's ankle. Probably out for a while, but we don't know like how much Michael Carter could factor in. Possible Bam Knight is a true lead back for the next couple of weeks. But again, as bad as the Jaguars are against the pass, they're really good against the run. So that's going to be a tough matchup for him in week 12.
All right, let's move to the wide receiver group here. And again, this is a path filled with a bunch of landmines. So I want to talk first about 2 guys that kind of, showed up and were productive, but again, feel like a little strange situation here. Greg Dortch, obviously 5% rostered. He was useful. But again, if Marvin Harrison returns, what happens to Greg Dortch's ability? Plus, was it more just like a one-off moment? And then before the football game happened in Buffalo, Keon Colman, I guess, missed a meeting and he was a healthy scratch. And then Tyrell Shavers, who's rostered in 0% of leagues. Shavers caught 4 of his 5 targets for a team high 90 yards and a touchdown. So, Pat, Shavers, Dortch, are these guys just complete traps, or is Shavers somebody in a deeper league? Like, I don't want to completely dismiss the Shavers situation because nobody's really stepped up here for the Buffalo Bills all year. So he is at least one that I just kind of sit there. Like, I know what Dortch is, but Shavers, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't think most of us had any clue what he could be in this offense. Certainly a good showing against the Bucs yesterday.
Yeah, and he's a big receiver, so maybe replacing Keon in that regard. I think he's like 6'4" or so, not especially fast, but there's not enough pedigree here to make me think he's a lasting thing. Like, he never scored more than 3 touchdowns in any of his college seasons. Started his college career at Alabama, but like transferred twice and kind of had to keep working his way down the ladder to get playing time.
But if you start in Alabama, Pat, I mean, there's some pedigree there.
There is some talent there. That's true. But Joe, I think there's not much of a downfield passing game for the Bills. I don't know if Shavers is the answer in that regard. I still think Shakir and Kincaid, when healthy, are probably the only 2 guys you can count on for like sustainable fantasy value here.
All right. So Dortch, Shavers, I'm sure Isaiah Hodgins is another guy who had a strange one-off. DBro, do you think that like any of these guys are worth any fab this week in a deeper league 14-teamer?
I'm not spending any fab on these guys. Like Greg Dortch had only a 10% target share. The 57 attempts for Brissett is doing a lot of heavy lifting for him. Tyrell Shavers, the Buffalo Bills ran a true wide receiver committee. Like behind Khalil Shakir, all of these guys played 23, like literally Shavers, Curtis Samuel, Josh Palmer, and Gabe Davis all played between 22 and 33, had 22 to 33 possible routes. I mean, literally was just a committee situation. So, like, any one of these guys, like Josh Palmer could have had the big day instead of Shavers. So, I don't want to spend fab on these guys.
All right. Fitzy, do you have anything else you want to add there? I felt like you had something else there.
No, that's it. I mean, DBro said it. 6 for 66 and a touchdown for Dortch, but 47 completions. Exactly. I mean, what does that look like on a normal day when it's like 24 or fewer completions? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on to Mack Hollins, 16% rostered. Last week, we were saying, DBro brought up the good point. I believe it was Derek. If it was you, Pat, I apologize. Just please take the credit. That, Booty on a short week probably is not going to play, so maybe we see a little bit more of Mack Hollins again. And we did. He caught 5 4 of his 5 targets for 64 yards. He's still 16% rostered. So, DBro, any thoughts on Mack Hollins here this coming week? Because obviously we continue to move forward here, and Mack Hollins now is 1 week, now it's 2 weeks. Does it continue to build, or does it recede if we get a Kayshon Boutte positive practice report?
Well, and the other thing, and I know you saw this play, and everybody else that was watching that Island game, Mack Hollins could have had to be even bigger day if Brandon Stevens didn't. He could have had an even bigger day. So he could have had like 2 back-to-back games with over 90 yards. I mean, the thing about, I think Mack Hollins is one of those guys you could sneak through waivers. If he's still out there, people are going to look at the name and they're going to dismiss it and say, oh, well, it's Mack Hollins. He's playing the Kayshon Boutte role, like in this offense. Like, so as long as Boutte is out and the next 2 weeks are fantastic, they get the freaking Bengals and the Giants, man. Mack Hollins can have more ceiling weeks. So is there risk, like we're talking about with Michael Wilson? Like, could he just turn back into a pumpkin when Boutte comes back? Possibly, but we don't know when that's going to happen, and hamstrings are problematic. That might not be this week. Okay, fine. Then you get to flex him versus the freaking Bengals. That might be for 2 games. Then you get the Bengals and the Giants. So have at it. Like, yeah, like I want to be bidding on Mack Hollins.
Fitzy, what's your Mack Hollins take?
I think he's a very serviceable receiver, and that might sound like faint praise, but serviceable works when you're playing with a really good quarterback, and Drake May is a really good quarterback. So I think Hollins is worthwhile in deeper leagues. Plus, I think he might have he's going to have a role even after Boutte gets back because, I mean, he is a great run blocker. Like, they want to keep Mack Hollins on the field because of what he can do. Competent pass catcher, really good run blocker. He's going to get snaps. Yep.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, too, I bet Vrabel last week for Coach of the Year because I just felt after that game the narrative is just going to be through the roof for him.
Oh, he's got to be minus money now. Has to be.
It was plus 125. I don't know what it is this morning after Sunday, but I was like, I'm going to lock this in at a big number here on the plus side just so I have it because I think it's going to be minus that for the rest of the season. I think it's gone because it's everywhere. It's every narrative on every show. Yep. Mike Vrabel this, Mike Vrabel that. And look, I'm happy about it, believe me. And that's the guy I wanted. But despite the fact there's some other good, the McDonald's and the, Shane Steichens have done great jobs this year. I don't think anyone's matching the media darling narrative right now that Drake May and Mike Vrabel are. It's just I'm still not sold completely on May as MVP. Some other people are. I'm not there yet. But for Coach of the Year, man, I think it's Vrabel by a mile right now. He's going to win that one. All right, let's get to Carolina Panthers because if only Bryce Young could just play the Atlanta Falcons every week, things would be great. The Atlanta Falcons went into this game, boys, with the least amount of receiving yards given up of any team in the NFL. And then Bryce Young dropped 450 on him. It broke my brain yesterday afternoon watching that unfold in front of me. And Xavier Legette, 14% rostered. He caught 4 of his 8 targets for 83 yards and a touchdown, but he had a hip injury. He left. Jalen Coker caught all 4 of his targets for 52 yards. So Fitzy, if Legette this is tough because I'm pretty sure we're done, right, with the Falcons. They've played them twice. If Bryce Young could play them every week, it would be amazing. But this is it. We're done playing the Falcons. So can you trust Bryce Young to make either of these guys useful in the long term, Pat?
Well, again, Joe, with Waddle and McConkey and some other wide receivers on bye this week, I think Coker could be a decent 1-week patch just because of the matchup this week. Like, the Panthers actually have a better matchup this week. They play the 49ers, who cannot put any pressure on quarterbacks. And hence we saw Jacoby Brissett out of clean pockets complete 47 passes on Sunday. So especially if Legette is out this week and Coker's number 2 behind Tyrell McMillan, I think Coker might be playable this week.
All right, you're a Coker guy.
I'm a cokehead.
You're a cokehead too? Yeah,
DBro's a bigger cokehead than I am.
I know.
Well, we don't want to compare here, Fitzy. I mean,
I think he gets that energy up with all these shows. DBro, I mean, look, it's been a long season of really kind of nothing from Jalen Coker. Injury, all that stuff, and the passing game is not exactly elite, despite what we saw yesterday in the Carolina Panthers. So how do you approach Legette, Coker, either, both? What's your thoughts?
I don't want to roster Legette. I think that he is just... People, how many times have we seen this guy? He pops off for a big game and then he has nothing burgers afterwards. I just don't think Legette's extremely talented. They keep force feeding him volume. He pops off for a big game and then he goes back into the cave. So I don't want anything to do with Legette. And then you add in the hip injury. Jalen Coker, I do think is worth a pickup. Again, I'm not probably spending like more than like $1 or $2 fab dollars, but I probably can get him for you, man. Like, and yeah, like Fitzy talked about, they get the 49ers. After that, they get the Rams, the Saints, the Bucks, the Seahawks, the Bucks again. If you're a Week 18 sicko. So there are some good matchups in there. And to this point, I mean, I know this is versus the Falcons, but you can run on the Falcons too. So like Carolina, I kind of wonder, are they going to feed more volume to this passing attack moving forward to truly find out, can Bryce Young be the guy for the answer for the franchise?
How many times have we done this already, this conversation?
I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm saying we could get more passing volume.
Is this this is the conversation we have every time after they play the Falcons. Yeah. This is what we do. And I can't do it anymore. I can't talk about it anymore. I want to talk about Jaden Higgins. Okay, that's what I want to talk about. 20% rostered, 4 of his 7 targets were caught for 55 yards. DBro, give me your take on Higgins, a player that I know we loved in the draft process. We were excited about the landing spot, and then I guess he's a rookie. Is he not a rookie anymore?
He's still dealing with Nick Caley. He's still dealing with the Houston wide receiver by committee approach, but he's producing in the routes that he's being allotted, and his role is slowly growing. Like in week 10, he had a 49% route share. Last week, that bumped up to 57%. He's drawing targets at a high rate when he is on the field. His target share went from 15% to 17%. This is the guy that I think, again, like you could sneak through for cheaper than he should go, because people look at the Houston offense. There's a certain stink around it. And they look at the usage of these wide receivers. But there is a run out for Jaden Higgins where eventually the Houston Texans just throw their hands up and say, okay, fine, we can't fight it anymore. The kid's talented. Holy crap, I guess we got to play him. And that's the upside case for Jaden Higgins, where he's in a fringe aspect right now, but he could grow into being like a consistent wide receiver 3 in the weeks to come if they just let him play.
All right. Will they let him play, Pat Fitzmaurice?
Not enough time for it to happen. 6 weeks left, 3 weeks till the fantasy playoffs. I'm excited about him for Dynasty because what we've seen is really impressive.
Yeah, good Dynasty.
It's maddening, though, that he has to share snaps with Xavier Hutchinson. And, like, look, we're also talking about an offense where the offensive line could short-circuit the passing game in any given week. I'm not chasing this. I'm excited about him for Dynasty. For redraft, no thanks.
All right. A couple guys we want to talk about too. Darnell Mooney. Are you chasing him at 36%, Pat, with the Drake London injury question mark hanging over us?
I mean, I think you have to if London misses time, and he's in the same
but
possible.
What about Kirk Cousins playing along with Penix?
I know that sucks, Joe. But like, and Mooney has been bad, and maybe it's because he's been playing hurt all season. He's had a shoulder issue, he's had a hamstring issue, but maybe target volume could prop him up in much the same way it propped up Michael Wilson in Week 11.
All right. DBro, thoughts on Mooney with Cousins, without London?
I think that he is definitely a viable pickup because of the Drake London injury and the schedule that he has over the next 2 weeks. Like, they get the Saints and the Jets. Like, I don't have a lot of faith in Kirk Cousins. I'm not scared about either one of those secondaries. And everybody, just before we move on here, you all wonder why I worry about injury reports, and I always say it with a grain of salt. We find out, like, what was it, last week? Darnell Mooney broke his freaking collarbone in training camp, and we heard nada, zilch, nothing, anything ever come out about that until now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. One more guy too. Luther Burden, 20% rostered. DBro, the cardiac kids that are the Chicago Bears continue to find ways to win. Is Luther Burden's role going to expand here down the stretch?
I think it can, and we've already kind of seen that happen. Now, the question is have we already kind of seen his ceiling cap because of how much 12 and 21 that Chicago wants to run just to get Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet both on the field at the same time? So Burden is worth a stash. He's worth the pickup. I'm not going to go crazy overboard on him, but 61% route share, 17.8% target share last week. His role did grow. He shoved Olamide Zaccheaus into a closet, a small closet, because Zaccheaus isn't, tall guy. But a closet nonetheless. So I think Burden is, hey, I'm not exactly tall either, okay? So amongst good company here. Yeah. Except for Fitz, who's like a giant to us.
Everybody at this company is a giant. And like I'm like fair. Average height. I feel like,
every meeting we walk into, Joey, it's
every
like.
Every meeting I walk into, I'm looking up at people like this. Everyone is 6'4". Like, what? I thought the dev guys weren't supposed to be that tall, right? They're just sitting in the
standing
caves,
desk,
creating
man.
All these amazing tools. I mean, all these guys are giants. Giants. What's going on? I love our team, but they are Giants, all of them.
It's fair.
Fitzy, any thoughts here real quick on on Luther Burden? So we're peeling back the layers of what really happens at Fantasy Pros. Ooh, it's fun.
Yeah, this guy is Luther Burden is so electric with the ball in his hands.
He is.
Like, he is. He can make your fantasy day in just one play. But I think he's almost like the rare handcuff wide receiver where it would probably take an injury to like Rome Odunze or DJ Moore for Burden to have enough value. Because like DBro said, the use of 2 tight end sets with Chicago, I mean, just sort of the way they've got 5 viable pass catchers with not a super high output passing game. I think it would probably take someone getting hurt for Burden to be startable.
Okay. Next up here, let's talk about drops real quick before we get to the streamers of the week. So Keon Colman, Pat, obviously the incident happened. Do you want to drop him and react to that or not?
Yeah, I do, and I'm the Keon Coleman guy.
That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it wasn't working out for him before this, and now with the playing time uncertain, there's no reason to keep him around.
All right, DBro. I've been asked this question by a lot of people. They're like, well, I need to pick up this guy, and I can't move this person because I only got one IR spot and Garrett Wilson's on it. If I've got one IR spot and I've got Garrett Wilson on it, I'm dropping Garrett Wilson if I have to put somebody else that's going to help me this year. Do you agree with that? Okay, I know that's a hard truth.
Adamantly agree.
Okay, I know it's a hard truth for everybody out there to hear that, but the chances of Garrett Wilson coming back and then playing meaningful football for the New York Jets.
The 2-8 New York Jets, Joe.
Yeah, like why would you do that as an organization? Now,
right,
not to be his quarterback.
He's not even eligible to come back until week 15. We don't know if he'll be ready to come back in week 15.
Or
You're probably there might be a ramp-up game even if he does play again.
Right.
Like, there's no point.
So we don't incur the rage of Aaron Glenn. We're not reporting injury news. That's not us. We didn't do it. It wasn't us. We're just we're reporting somebody else's reporting, okay? Please, Aaron Glenn, don't come after us.
Yeah, but I know certain leagues have restrictions, and this actually came up more than once this weekend. People asking me questions about it. I was like, "You dropped Garrett Wilson?" They're like, "You do?" And I said, "Yeah, you put Laporte on the IR because he's more useful to you. You drop Garrett Wilson, and you move along with your day, and you get other guys that can help you in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Because, as Fitzy said, the return is quote unquote the playoffs of fantasy. And do you even trust him at that point, health wise, or trust with the Jets? God knows what it's going to look like 5 weeks from now. All right, let's continue on here with the streamers for the week. Fitzy, give us all your streamers. Give me your QB, your tight end, your defense, and your kicker for week 12.
All right. DBro is going to give you the best streaming quarterback of the week. So I'll give you the second best one. Nice tease,
though. Well done.
I think it's Bryce Young. And I'm not point chasing here after the big Bryce Young game. I'm just trying to target the San Francisco defense. Last in the league in pressure rate, last in sacks. And we just saw Jacoby Brissett carve them up like a Thanksgiving turkey with 47 completions. So he's my streamer at quarterback. Tight end, I'll go with Colston Loveland. Pittsburgh has just been giving it up to tight ends. That's the Bears matchup this week. Loveland does split snaps with Cole Kmet, but against Pittsburgh, a partial snap share might be enough. For defense, give me the Raiders against probably Shedeur Sanders making his first start after Dylan Gabriel's concussion. Like, having to start the Raiders against Gabriel wouldn't be bad either. But Shedeur, I mean, he just looked lost in his first. And granted, coming in off the bench, that's a tough spot. But 4 of 16, 47 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 sacks, finished with a passer rating of 13.5. So I'm targeting Shedeur Sanders with my defense. And a kicker, Cairo Santos. Double digits in 3 of his last 4 games for fantasy points. And if you go back to week 4, it's actually 4 of his last 5. He had missed a couple of games with a quad injury. So for the season, Santos is averaging 10 fantasy points a game and gets a matchup against the Steelers, who are giving up 10.6 fantasy points a game to kickers.
All right, DBro, give us your streamers for week 12.
Well, I'm going to lead off with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he gets the Jaguars, man. I mean, he's been basically a QB1 every single freaking start, so I'm not backing off of that. Juwan Johnson's my tight end streamer of the week. Tyler Shucks, 2 starts. He's been tight end 9 and tight end 3 in fantasy. I'm not telling you it's been pretty, but he's putting up fantasy points. That's all we care about. And I'll stay in the same game. It's going to be ugly, baby. Cleveland Browns going against the Raiders. Geno is problematic for turnovers. So the Browns defense... definitely worth streaming this week. And Cam Little at kicker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's actually had some pretty good weeks, man. In 2 of the last 3 weeks, 13 or more fantasy points.
All right, everybody, don't forget Waiver Central is available, the tool that will help you find the guys to add in Week 12. So sync your leagues for free. Download the Fantasy Pros app today and use Waiver Central to make the right adds and the right drops in all of your leagues. Let's get to the top 5 waiver wire ads of the week. DBro, kick us off with your top 5.
Emmanuel Wilson leading the way at 1, Bhayshul Tuten number 2, Christian Watson number 3, Michael Wilson number 4, and Kenneth Gainwell bringing up the rear at number 5.
All right, Fitzy, the top 5 for you for Week 12.
Emmanuel Wilson 1, Bhayshul Tuten 2, just like DBro. And then we're going to have a run out with Cardinals here with Michael Wilson, Jacoby Brissett, who I think is the best streaming quarterback by a mile for this coming week, which is why he has to be top 5. And then Bam Knights, just because I think he can be their lead guy for, the next week or two.
All right. Don't forget, everybody, the waiver stream will be live here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Drop your comments below and join us Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, for myself and Derek Brown taking your waiver wire questions to help you make the right moves. That'll do it for us at a jam-packed waiver wire show. But of course, the story of the game goes on for Derek Brown and Pat Fitzmaurice. I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.